Did you know that wishing wells were about to be added to the game back in 2009, but the concept was scrapped during Test Realm? Or that there's a secret mount with an insane speed boost only obtainable by KingsIsle developers? Hey everyone, I'm Gladrocker, and wow, I never expected my first Wizard101 Iceberg Explained video to blow up so much. Seriously, you all loved it. So of course the requests for a part 2 started pouring in. And at first I was scared. I mean, I already covered 67 topics in my part 1 video. Are there really any more Wizard101 facts, mysteries, and conspiracies out there for a whole part 2? Well, after months of research and discussions with community members, I've compiled 60 new topics. Get ready, I'm about to share some insane new information that even the most veteran players don't know about. Trust me, we've barely scratched the surface. This rabbit hole goes deep. As you've probably noticed, instead of creating a whole separate iceberg for my new topics, or extending the bottom of my original one into some hellish landscape like I've seen other creators do, I decided to mix all my new topics into the original iceberg's layers. This way, the integrity of the layers remains uncompromised, and there's a clear archive of every single topic from parts 1 and 2. And just so you don't get confused, the old topics are in red, and the new topics are in yellow. Oh, and fair warning, just like in my original video, some of these later topics do get pretty dark, so viewer discretion is advised. Let's begin. Attack names. Way back during the game's alpha, sometime around 2007, spell cards not only had a name, but also an attack name. After digging through some very old footage and images, here's what I could find. Ninja Pig's attack was called Pork Chop, Sunbird's was Fire Screech, Humongo Frog's was Humongo Lunch, Vampires was probably Life Drain or Life Steal, and unfortunately the rest are covered up, or not shown at all. I personally wish KI kept attack names on spells. I feel like it adds more character to these otherwise simple creatures, and I'd love to know every other spell's attack name from back in the day, but until KI releases this information publicly, we'll never know. 1 in a Million. 1 in a Million is one of the most popular badges in the game. It's awarded for dealing at least 1 million damage to an enemy in a single hit. The badge was introduced during Avalon's release in May 2012. At this time, it was extremely hard to deal 1 million damage, considering there were way fewer spells to buff your hits than there are today, so lots of players were creating guides and uploading YouTube videos flexing it. However, only a few months later, the November 2012 Azteca update introduced Sharpened Blade and Potent Trap, allowing players to stack more copies of blades and traps, making this badge a lot easier to obtain. So earning 1 in a million is no longer as big of a flex as it was upon release. It's worth noting that KI released a similar badge, Elixir Vitae, a year later during the November 2013 Chrysalis Part 1 update, except instead of for dealing damage, this badge is awarded for healing 1 million health in a single heal spell, which is way more difficult considering the game doesn't have nearly as many healing buffs. But luckily, players found a trick to earn Elixir Vitae without casting any heal at all. Simply load up on damage buffs, then cast a 1 million steal health on your minion. The game would count this as both 1 million damage and 1 million health, thus earning you both badges at the same time. Very clever. And after KI raised the damage cap from 1 million to 2 million, players discovered an even easier trick. Just cast a 2 million damage drain. Since you get back 1 million health, this also earns you both badges at the same time, making obtaining Elixir Vitae a piece of cake. Wolf Stormblade. Anyone active on the Wiz subreddit knows about this one. Wolf Stormblade isn't just a person, he's a type of person. The quintessential arrogant storm wizard that freaks out when you don't blade him and always tries to be the hitter even if his stats suck. And if he's got max stats, he'll make sure everyone knows. We've all run into a Wolf Stormblade while questing, and we've all wished we hadn't. Seriously though, besides Reddit having tons of memes about it, there's not much else to say. I was able to find 2 Wolf Stormblade references made by the KI team themselves though, which I found pretty interesting. In an August 2021 Wizard101 forums post, game director Leah Rubin, also known as Professor Falmea, discussed the in-game reporting system. She showed an example customer support ticket you should submit if you catch someone violating the community code of conduct. Hello, my username is ProfFalmea333, and I am in the Commons, and I just watched Wolf Stormblade say inappropriate things in chat. This one's pretty funny, because it directly references the stereotype's toxicity. And in a September 2020 developer diary, lead designer Ben Durbin, aka Ratbeard, warned against setting in PvP. Ratbeard says, "It's not okay to wait until you know that Wolf Stormblade is in the queue and then change your gear setup to set against him specifically." This one's just a random name drop, but regardless, these posts show just how involved the game's staff is in the subreddit's meme culture. Pretty funny. Blaze Lifehammer. Blaze Lifehammer, or Nate Henton in real life, is one of the most popular Wizard101 YouTubers out there, with almost 200,000 subscribers today. For a game with a relatively small fanbase, this is an extremely impressive sub count. He made his channel back in 2012 when he was just 16 years old, posting simple playthrough videos, often featuring other WizTubers he was friendly with at the time, like Zenmaster Blue and Alexander Lionheart. It was when he started covering important news in the Wizard101 community that his channel quickly rose to the top. Things like King's Isle producer letters and staff forums posts. Basically, if KI released an update, Blaze would cover it in a video. And at the time, nobody else was doing this, so it was an easy market for gaining views. The community loved Blaze. By uploading consistently and keeping a neutral and unbiased tone, he proved to be a very reliable source of information. Eventually, in 2016, he met content creator Tara Dawnbreaker, who he'd soon get married to. Although Blaze stayed out of trouble, it was Tara who, just like many other influencers, found herself in the middle of a controversy in 2018. She was criticized heavily by other creators for appearing fake on stream and repeatedly begging her followers for donations. She'd constantly ask viewers to contribute money towards giveaways, which came off as predatory, as she was basically promoting gambling. And worst of all, she tried to get any popular streamer who had a negative opinion of her banned, like Awesome the Sauce. Fortunately for Blaze though, he was able to dodge most of the drama. These days, he continues to cover Wizard101 updates on his channel, but posts way less frequently, probably just because he's grown up and moved on. If you're watching this, Blaze, I'm a big fan. Storm Beetle. The Storm Beetle is one of the rarest pets in the entire game, as it was originally given away when Wizard101 hit 1 million players back in 2009. For context, on February 13th, 2009, Wizard101 announced they just hit 1 million players. This was very impressive, considering it happened only 6 months after the game's September 2008 launch. The millionth player herself was a girl named Fiona Ashblood, and KI awarded her with the free 1-year membership, along with featuring her name on an interactive fountain in the Commons. But it wasn't just Fiona herself that was awarded. KI also gave every single player 101 crowns, and for a limited time, they had Prospector Zeke sell a new exclusive pet, the Storm Beetle, for that's right, 101 crowns, meaning every player could technically get one for free. I feel like it would have been easier for KI to just give everyone the Storm Beetle pet instead of making it available for purchase and giving everyone the crowns to buy it. But I guess this way you could buy multiple from Zeke if you purchased more crowns. Still, I'm sure some people didn't even notice it was being sold and just spent their free 101 crowns on some random item instead. Brutal. We all know the famous Storm Beetle spell that comes with the pet. But fun fact, upon release back in February 2009, the Storm Beetle pet didn't give any spells at all. KI finally gave it one copy of the Storm Beetle spell on March 26, 2010. It's strange they waited so long too, considering there's evidence of other pets having spell cards long before this date, as early as August 2009. But anyway, today the Storm Beetle gives up to 4 Storm Beetle cards, one at Adult, one at Ancient, one at Epic, and one at Mega. It's worth pointing out that this pet became such a fan favorite that KI offered a few other ways to obtain it later on, including making it a limited time KI free games prize, giving it away as a free reward for anyone who played Grub Guardian during the 2012 Play in November, Pet in December event, And weirdest of all, giving it away to anyone who liked their Facebook page in fall 2011. That's a desperate way to get Facebook likes. Sadly, all these ways to get the storm beetle pet happened over a decade ago, and since then, there's been no other way to obtain it. So if you missed out, you missed out. And good luck hatching for one, because you'll just get a rain beetle as a result, which still gives the item cards, but just isn't the same because it's not exclusive. Hey, if you're one of the lucky ones who has the original storm beetle pet, let me know in the comments. Drop rates. It's no surprise that every loot pool in the game's been fully documented on the wiki, whether from mobs, bosses, interactive housing items, or crown packs. However, one missing component in the wiki is the specific drop rate of every item, and that's because KI's never shared drop rate information with us, and for good reason. If players saw the actual percentages of just how rare certain drops are, they'd feel way less inclined to pursue them. So by keeping the illusion that all loot for the most part is dropped randomly, players remain hopeful while farming. Additionally, KI's deceptive crowns pack system is already controversial enough, as it's essentially promoting gambling for children.
Is this a children's game? With gambling? No way this could actually be. Wait a minute.
So imagine how much more backlash there'd be if we knew exactly how low certain items' drop rates were. There's nothing else to say about drop rates except that in the past, players have claimed to data mine drop rate tables, but these leaks were nothing more than just hoaxes. Obsidian chests. Anyone who played Wiz back in the early days remembers the pain from completing the quest Wizard Tours. This quest, which you pick up near the end of Dragonspire, required going back to every previous world and opening obsidian chests located in various boss rooms. There were 2 obsidian chests in Wizard City, 2 in Krokotopia, 2 in Marleybone, 2 in Mushu, and even 1 in Dragonspire, so 9 chests in total. And to make matters worse, Dragonspire's obsidian chest was conveniently located in Vladimir Darkflame's office, in the Labyrinth, the game's hardest dungeon up until this point. Meaning in order to open this final chest, you needed to go back and complete half the hardest dungeon all over again. Back in the early days, this was an absolute pain. So obviously, this quest caused a lot of backlash from the community. Players hated revisiting so many old bosses, and they especially hated dealing with the Labyrinth all over again. So, KI listened. In April 2015, KI shortened the amount of obsidian chests you need to open from 9 to only 4. So now there's just 1 in Wizard City, 1 in Krokotopia, 1 in Marleybone, and 1 in Mushu, making this quest a lot less painful to complete. And notice how they removed the one from the Labyrinth altogether. If you never dealt with the original version of this quest, consider yourself lucky. Dell Aldrich. The classic soothing narrator's voice you hear throughout the entire game up until the end of Imperia belongs to none other than voice actor Dell Aldrich. She also voiced prominent character Grandmother Raven, and it's not a coincidence that Dell voiced both, because it's eventually revealed in-game that Grandmother Raven is the narrator, with the canon explanation being that she's been watching over you this whole time.
I have long watched you as you made your way through the spiral. Perhaps you have felt my presence before.
Unfortunately, Dell passed away recently on October 2nd, 2022 at 91 years old. This came as a shock to so many players, as she was deeply loved by the community. To honor her, KingsIsle sold Grandmother Raven plushies as part of a makeshift campaign. Also, during Wizard101's 15th birthday event in September 2023, all players received a Grandmother Raven monument, which upon interacting with it, plays the last voice line Dell ever recorded for Grandmother Raven.
Thank you all for never giving up on this world. I love you all.
It's a very meaningful tribute to her. What most players don't know is that Dell had been an actress and voice actress her whole life, well before Wizard101 even existed. Her IMDb page displays all the shows, movies, and video games she's been in, with her earliest role as Mrs. Conwell in the 1963 black and white television show Route 66. We miss you, Dell.
For heaven's sakes, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your community. I love you all.
Fake ads. Ever since the game's launch, KI's always promoted Wizard101 through ads on external sites. This was much more prevalent back in the day before social media giants dominated the internet. You know, when people actually went to other websites. Think about it. You're scrolling through some online game site in the early 2010s, and bam! Wizard101, a magical adventure awaits you. Play free. Now, when I first saw this iceberg topic brought up by the community, I thought it was just referring to false advertising, which makes sense because play free? Every Wizard101 player knows you'll hit a paywall within the first few hours of playing, so it's pretty dishonest for KI to deceive newcomers with such blatant false advertising, since you can't even access 99% of the game without paying for a subscription. And don't even get me started on the microtransactions. But after digging a bit deeper, I soon realized fake ads meant something entirely different. There were literally fake Wizard101 ads hosted on external sites that claimed they'd take you to wizard101.com, but would instead redirect you over to malicious websites. These were obviously created by scammers to steal information from anyone gullible enough to click them. And you could tell these ads were fake because they just felt off, almost creepy and uncanny. Take a look at this one. It's clearly fake because the unicorn does not look like the one from in-game. Apparently, this unicorn's from another MMO, freerealms. Also, the button on top says create a hero. If the scammer took any time at all to research the game, they'd know create a wizard would make a lot more sense. This next one I found doesn't even show an image from the game. Instead, it displays a completely unrelated stock photo of some fantasy artwork. Very strange. This one was spotted on an X-rated site. Not by me, by someone else. It's obvious that KI would never place ads on adult websites, as the game's rated E10 and up, so even though the ad looks real, it's clearly fake. And take a look at this one. Reverse image searching the artwork shows it's from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, an old Xbox 360 game. Completely wrong franchise, not even close. And don't even get me started on these ads. Who's this guy? I don't recognize him at all. And why is this draconian so sexy? Alright, I'm editing this now, and turns out this is KI's official concept art of Dragonspire NPC Milo Bookworm and the official draconian artwork. So oops, these could be real. But yeah, KI is very aware that these fake ads exist, and they've requested that players send them their links to get them taken down. This goes without saying, but never click on an ad that looks suspicious. It could take you to a site that steals your information. Be smart. Wall phasing. Wall phasing's been around since the game's release back in 2008. It's a way to make your wizard look like it's walking through walls to other players, but on your computer, you're staying in the same place. So I wouldn't classify this as an exploit, but rather a visual bug. To wall phase, make sure your game is in windowed mode, not full screen. The rest is simple. Just begin walking in any direction, then click and hold the top bar of your window. While it's held down, your own screen freezes, but other players will see your wizard awkwardly sliding across the screen, ignoring collisions and boundaries. Once you let go of the bar, your wizard snaps back into its original place. So yeah, you can't actually walk through walls with this trick, so it's not a bannable offense, but you can fool other players into thinking you are. Make a wish. Now there's a lot to cover here, so let's jump right in. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is a non-profit organization that helps fulfill the wishes of children with a critical illness. For example, eligible children often request to meet their celebrity idols, like Taylor Swift or Dwayne Johnson. However, in a few cases, Wizard101 superfans made their wish to meet the KI team. This usually consists of an all-day tour around the Kings Isle headquarters in Austin, Texas, where they get to meet staff members and learn all about the game's development. There's 4 Make-A-Wish children in particular that I want to talk about, because in addition to just giving them office tours, KI actually added each child as an NPC into the game, cementing them as a part of Wizard101's history. On December 12, 2013, KI admin Headmaster Ambrose posted on the forums about a recent studio visit from Alan Guzman through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Throughout the tour, Alan and his family got to meet staff members from every department. While touring the sound department, the staff had Alan pick his favorite voice actor from a handful of options to voice a new secret character in the game. And by the end of the day, they revealed this new character would be based on Alan himself, even naming him after Alan's own wizard, Alan Ghostdust, and equipping him with Alan's pet, Lord Snoopy. You can find the Alan Ghostdust NPC today as soon as you get to Chrysalis, where he gives you your 4th potion. Sadly, Alan Guzman passed away only 1 month after his visit on January 2nd, 2014. Players held an in-game funeral service honoring him. In October 2015, Make-A-Wish teenager Daniel visited the KI offices. Daniel always wanted to have a career in game design, so KI graciously allowed Daniel to meet with designers to design his very own in-game boss, Simon the Sayer. Daniel helped design the boss cheat mechanics, the location of the fight, and even the unique wand it drops. You can find Simon the Sayer and Daniel's very own NPC in Sunken City today. This next Make-A-Wish fan visit is probably the most well-known, mainly because of the valuable treasure cards that came from it. On April 15, 2016, Brandon toured the KI offices and got to meet with staff members in every department. Just like during Daniel's visit, Brandon was given the chance to design his very own in-game boss. KI then added an NPC based on Brandon's own wizard, which hands out the quest to defeat it. You can find Brandon's NPC in Forlorn Take, Polaris, and his custom-designed boss, Nabarix, in Dragonspire. What's really cool is that in addition to a whole new boss and NPC, KI also introduced a brand new Brandon minion, which players could summon using treasure cards or jewels dropped by his boss. There's 7 minions, 1 for each school, and they're the strongest minions in the game, with amazing stats and spells. Players still farm for Brandon treasure cards to this day, especially to use during KI's monthly decathlon event. Lastly, in October 2017, Derek visited KingsIsle's offices. With so much footage recorded from his visit, we can really get a good idea of what this whole experience looked like. In fact, the October 2017 KI Live even included an interview with him. Derek's NPC, Derek Blaze, named after combining Derek himself with his balanced wizard Blaze, stands in Old Town, right outside the bazaar. The purpose of Derek's NPC is to introduce players to the team-up mechanic, a brand new system at the time that allows you to link up with players across other realms to complete dungeons. This new mechanic greatly improved the user experience, because before then it was so much harder finding players to quest or farm with. Derek's NPC also sells unique items locked behind team-up badge requirements, like the Sandstorm mount in Old Town Apartment. Overall, it's really special that KingsIsle granted the wishes of so many children and teens through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Now, so many of their legacies are immortalized in Wizard101's history forever. Pioneer Dragon. The Pioneer Dragon is an extremely rare pet. You'll hardly ever encounter someone who has one today, and that's because it was given out as a free reward to anyone who played during the game's open beta between August 6th and September 2nd, 2008. So, unless you literally played during the very first month Wizard101 was ever released to the public, you'll never be able to obtain one. This was confirmed by KI staff member Professor Greyrose in the forums. Appearance-wise, it's just a regular dragon pet, except with a moon and stars pattern. It gives 1 Dragon Blade card, which is pretty useful in combat, and just like every other retired pet, hatching with one won't make another. In this case, hatching results in a Frontier Dragon, which is similar but not the same because it's not exclusive, and has a different star pattern on its body. Hey, if you have a Pioneer Dragon, let me know in the comments. Oh, and before I move on to the next topic, there's something else I want to mention here. The Pioneer Dragon Mount. During the entire month of September 2013, Wizard101 celebrated its 5th birthday. Aside from KI adding party decorations all over Wizard City, crown shop sales, and new crowns items, every player was also rewarded with a free exclusive item based on their account creation date. The earlier their account was created, the better the reward. Going in order from least to most rare, accounts created between September 2nd, 2011 and September 30th, 2013 received an agate dragon statue. Accounts created between September 2nd, 2010 and September 1st, 2011 received the Argent Dragon statue. Accounts created before September 2nd, 2010 received an Auric Dragon statue. Accounts created during the first year of the final release between September 2nd, 2008 and September 1st, 2009 received a permanent Frontier Dragon mount. And finally, accounts created during the game's beta before September 2nd, 2008 received a permanent Pioneer Dragon mount. These two mounts are incredibly exclusive, with the Pioneer Dragon mount being the rarest. It's a major flex to show these off today. Let me know in the comments if you have them. Hobgobbler. The Hobgobbler mount is one of the rarest mounts in the game. In fact, so rare that I can't even find footage of someone who legitimately owns one. All I could find is this footage from someone who data mined it from the game's files. So why is it rare? According to the wiki, it was only ever obtainable as a reward for those who placed top 10 in the very first Death Decathlon, back in June 2019. For those of you who don't know, the Decathlon's a recurring monthly event in Wizard101 that lasts for 1 week at a time, where you grind through floors of enemies with minimal stats, using only treasure cards. During the first few months of this event, KingsIsle experimented with the reward system. They displayed a global leaderboard with different prizes for players in the top brackets, but here's where they messed up. They initially allowed players to obtain unlimited credits per event, meaning the event rewarded those who sat at their computer 24 hours a day, obsessively entering and re-entering the tower. This was an extremely unhealthy playstyle. After being criticized for promoting such an unhealthy, addictive playstyle, KingsIsle capped the event at 3 credits per day, meaning today, players are rewarded for skill during their 3 runs a day versus sheer playtime. But why is any of this even important to know? Because the Hobgobbler mount was only ever a reward for the top 10 players during the first ever Death Decathlon event, which ran during the experimental time when players who obsessively grinded through unlimited credits placed higher on the leaderboard. So only 10 players in the entire game ever received a Hobgobbler mount, and they had to grind obsessively 24/7 for the entire week to earn it. Yeah, that's equally as impressive as it is unhealthy. And that's all we've ever seen about the Hobgobbler, until a freak incident on August 22nd, 2023, where KingsIsle mistakenly put it in the crown shop for just about an hour for just 20,000 gold. This was insane, considering they never put such exclusive mounts in the crown shop for gold, especially ones so rare that only 10 ever existed in the game. I'm assuming once KingsIsle found out about this bug, they took these illegitimately purchased Hobgobblers away from players' accounts and refunded their gold. Or at least I hope they did. Regarding this, Twitter user YumJazzTV, who apparently was one of the original Death Decathlon top 10 winners, said, "One of the 10 people who got it legit. I really hope they had removed it somehow off players' accounts. The amount of grinding and staying up you had to do to stay in the top 10 back in 2019 was unreal. I haven't logged on since, very afraid to see the damage this has done." This just shows once again how unhealthy the original decathlons were, and how offensive it was to those top 10 winners to introduce the Hobgobbler into the crown shop, even if by mistake. Just like the Valor Sword incident I covered in my part 1 video, exclusive items should stay exclusive. Character reskins. Wizard101's Summer 2020 update brought a lot of new content to the game, but the most notable change was the character model update. KI completely revamped how players looked by adding new facial customization options, eye blinks, enhanced expressions, and increased texture resolution for more detail. This was a big change, because until this point, aside from adding a few new hairstyle options to the crown shop, Wizard101 hasn't added a single new way to customize your character since the game's 2008 launch. And as years passed, these old character models felt more and more outdated, especially compared to other more popular games. But initially, KI fumbled the Summer 2020 revamp. The first week of Test Realm resulted in tons of community backlash. Players hated how disturbing and uncanny the new faces looked. Their smiles felt creepy. It looked like they had Botox and lip fillers. And don't even get me started on their teeth. Even the characters' bodies felt unnatural, with awkward hand positions and glossy outfits. I mean, how does this look better than this? The community was not happy. Even I was annoyed my wizard lost its sharp jawline and rugged look. Ugh. Fortunately, KI listened to everyone's feedback, and by the end of Test Realm, the new character models looked a lot more polished. So overall, this was a much needed change, and at this point everyone's gotten used to the new models, but old players still feel a burning sense of nostalgia whenever they see old footage of the original iconic designs. Weddings. This is a big topic I'm actually surprised I missed in my part 1 video. Way back when the game first came out, in-game weddings were a huge trend. Players would roleplay entire wedding ceremonies with a bride, groom, officiant, and tons of guests. Then, just like in all those old Wizard101 music videos that were popular back in the day, players would slap on a classic early 2000s pop song and upload the footage to YouTube. Everyone was doing this. If you weren't getting married in Wizard101, you weren't cool. This trend actually became so popular that players would just roam around the commons asking others to attend their wedding. And hosting one was a big deal too. Apparently, if you owned a massive fantasy palace, you could literally rent it out for multiple hours in return for a lot of rare treasure cards or clout. And I gotta say, these wedding ceremonies went above and beyond. Castles were completely decked out with elaborate wedding decorations, and the role-playing was always very well coordinated. Players took it seriously. It's hard to pinpoint when this trend died down, but it seems like around 2012, the community started to move on from these, but you'll still see some today. Pokemon. This one's pretty strange. For some reason, players can actually type the word Pokemon not only in open chat, but in text chat too. Notice how the font is white instead of yellow? This means KI specifically went out of their way to whitelist the term Pokemon as an acceptable word visible to all players. Now this is highly unusual, because KI is extremely selective with what they allow text chat players to see. In fact, all other video game franchises, and just brand names in general, aren't allowed in text chat. A text chat player would only see dots. So why did KI whitelist Pokemon? It's not like Pokemon is part of Wizard101's lore. Or is it? Perhaps at one point KI considered collabing with Nintendo. I mean, both Wizard101 and Pokemon are RPGs involving cards, monsters, and saving the world. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to imagine a universe where both exist together. Cheat engine. We've all seen that one wizard while questing that zips past us at 100 miles per hour. They're using Cheat Engine. Cheat Engine's a tool that's been around the game forever. Basically, it's a third-party software that essentially allows you to hack into the game and change properties of variables. What does this mean? You could run 10 times faster, you could generate infinite gold, you could teleport to any spot in the game, you can auto-click during combat, which is actually something I covered in my part 1 video, you could skip certain areas in dungeons, and much more. Apparently there's tons of different cheat engines out there. I don't recommend using any though, because they directly violate the game's terms of use, meaning you can get banned for using them. But those who risked their account to use Cheat Engine in the past have expressed how much more enjoyable and efficient questing and farming are when you're speeding around zones and gaining infinite resources. Squatting. This one's pretty funny. If a wizard's caught at a certain frame in the middle of a jump animation during the loading screen, they'll be rendered into the next zone stuck in a squatting position. The easiest way to replicate this is by spamming the spacebar while entering a zone. It may take a few attempts, so be patient. But yeah, if your wizard gets stuck in a squat, it'll just slide around the map like this until you either equip a pet, a mount, or enter a new zone. And by the way, this visual bug is strictly on the client side, meaning only you'll see the wizard squatting, and not your friends. Trivia bots. Back in late 2013, KI released a site called freekigames.com. Here, you could choose from a large selection of Flash games to play, and even win codes to earn in-game items for your Wizard101 account. though the site was most popular for its trivia, short 10-question quizzes on a topic of your choice, where if you score high enough, you win 10 crowns. You're limited to 10 quizzes a day, meaning you could earn 100 crowns a day. This was a miracle for free-to-play children whose parents refused to buy them a membership or crowns. Given that early zones like Cyclops Lane and Firecat Alley only cost 750 crowns, you only needed to complete 8 days of trivia to permanently unlock them. Here's the thing though, these quizzes are such a pain in the butt to complete. Not because they're hard, but because they're time consuming. So over the years, coders developed browser extensions capable of auto-completing 10 trivia quizzes a day, known as trivia bots. So, without even clicking your mouse, you could cheat to earn 100 free crowns every single day. All you had to do was sit there and let the bot do its thing. Of course, this directly violated Wizard101's terms of use, which states do not use any robot, spider, or other automatic device, process, or means to access the site. So yeah, KingsIsle was not happy. They let it slide for a while. Then one day in September 2020, KI suddenly went on a rampage, banning tons of accounts that were caught using these trivia bots. Reddit exploded. The sheer amount of people who came forward about getting banned was insane. I personally had no idea so many players used these trivia bots. In addition to banning players, KI also issued a takedown on every Google extension under the violation of facilitating access to content in a manner that violates the intellectual property of rights of an entity. When Alex Kroll, admin of one of these trivia bots, asked for permission to keep his bot up if he modified it to be more agreeable to their terms, KI responded with, "Hello, no, kind regards, KingsIsle support." I'm not even kidding. That's exactly what they wrote back. Their passive aggression was wild. So yeah, no more trivia bots. It's also worth noting that once Flash died at the end of 2020, KingsIsle moved all their trivia off KI free games and over to the main Wizard101 site, so you could still earn crowns there today. WizConsole and mobile. On January 16, 2021, MGI, a company that already owns several other gaming companies like Gamigo, acquired KingsIsle Entertainment for $126 million. This acquisition was met with mixed emotions from the community. Some fans were happy that KI's increased budget could potentially mean larger and more frequent updates for Wizard101, whereas other players complained that the greedy executives over at MGI were going to kill the game by adding even more microtransactions, since they'll only care about making money. Either way, every player was excited about one new thing. According to MGI's official press release covering the acquisition, they stated they'd be launching the game on console, as well as developing a mobile version for 2022 onwards. Wiz on console and mobile? By 2022? This news elated fans. The community was overjoyed. Wizard101 on console and mobile sounded too good to be true. Well, it was. Fast forward to 2022, and nothing. No sign of them even beginning development on either platform. All we got was a note from MGI's 2022 half-year report that teams are actively looking into the logistics of porting Wizard101 to other systems such as console and mobile. Yeah, in other words, zero progress. Players were let down just as hard as they were hyped up. Not a great look for KI or their new parent company MGI. Porting Wiz to console and mobile quickly became just another promise KI failed to deliver. Name and gender change. Since the game's launch back in 2008, players have been begging KI to add both a name change and a gender change feature to the game. These were probably the most highly requested features ever asked for by the community, and for the longest time, it didn't seem like they'd ever be a possibility, since according to KI, it would be nearly impossible to implement into their existing codebase. Then finally, almost 15 years after launch, KI did it. They added both a name and gender change option to the game during the summer 2023 update.
You heard it here first. I will officially announce it. Name gender change confirmed for the summer update.
Players were ecstatic. The name change itself was huge. Anyone who initially gave their wizard a joke name like Patrick Star, Luke Skywalker, Taylor Swift, Sierra Mist, Brian Griffin, Riley Red, don't look up that last one. Now they could finally give their wizard an original name. And KI added twice as many first and last name options, with many new diverse ones as well. And so you don't lose track of any old friends that changed their names, KI added an icon on your friends list that shows their old name. The gender change was just as huge. This was extremely beneficial for transgender players, as they're now able to change their wizard's gender to align with their gender identity. So overall, this update was met with tons of excitement, and even though KI only lets you change your name and gender once, it only costs 100 crowns, which is a steal considering many players were expecting to pay a lot more. Players were thrilled. Maybe a little too thrilled. During Test Realm, players got a little too creative with the new naming options, so before the update went live, KI removed certain options players were using to create potentially offensive names. I guess KI wasn't too fond of naming your wizard Ocean Titan Disaster, right after the real-life Ocean Gate disaster just a few weeks earlier, where 5 people died trying to explore the Titanic wreckage. Roblox remakes. Now, I'm not going to act like a Roblox expert, because I'm not. But if you don't know, Roblox is an extremely popular family-friendly game platform. You create an avatar, explore the world, and interact socially with other players. It's also the game that created the oof sound. That's really all you need to know. Anyway, in addition to being a game on its own, Roblox also acts as a platform where you can create games within the Roblox framework. So yeah, with such a wide variety of fan-made Roblox games, you bet there's a fair share of Wizard101 remakes. The most popular one I could find is called Spellbound RPG, released in June 2021. It's honestly quite impressive. The creators did a phenomenal job replicating all the core mechanics of Wizard101. Straight down to the school system, dungeon crawling, battle mechanics, camera angles, and sound effects. Two things I especially like that aren't even in Wiz are the concept of endless raid towers where you climb as high as you can without any heals, and the ability to switch your school at any time, instead of having to make a brand new wizard. There's plenty of other Wizard101 remakes on Roblox too, like Discarded RPG, which still look good, but they don't seem as fleshed out as Spellbound RPG. Wiz Hex. Back in the early 2010s, players coined the word hex to mean as a way to bypass the chat filter. And anyone who played during these times knows just how rampant Wiz Hex became. It was a trend where promiscuous players would add random people in the comments and then invite them back to their dorm room where they'd engage in adult roleplay. This is where phrases like takes off clothes became popular, due to just how ridiculous they sounded in a game like Wiz. I do have some darker things to say about this, but I'll come back to it later. Not this tier. Treant transformation. Everyone knows about the transformations you could buy from the crown shop for 500 gold. They're purely cosmetic. You just run around looking goofy for an hour before they expire. Now, as many of you know, there's a few rare transformations that are only available during quests, like the Raven transformation in Sudgerland, the Gamma transformation before entering Ghost Avalon, and the tutu-wearing polar bear transformation in Polaris. Yeah, this one's pretty goofy. But did you know there's an extremely rare Treant transformation that's completely retired from the game? It was given away during Wizard101's second birthday celebration back in September 2010, and according to the wiki, it lasts for an hour just like all the Crown Shop ones. So the only way a player could have this Treant transformation today is if they had received it as a second birthday reward for logging in sometime between September 2nd and 12th, 2010 and never activated it yet. Or technically, they could have activated it then logged out of their wizard before it expired, because fun fact, elixir timers completely pause while a character is logged out. But yeah, this is just another incredibly rare retired item forgotten by the community. Let me know in the comments if you remember it. Mannequin glitch. For the longest time, the best low-level PvP gear in the game was the commander set sold by Diego the Duel Master. This gear outshined all other gear, having incredibly high stats, yet no level requirement to equip. I actually had a level 10 Ice Warlord with disgustingly high stats back in the day thanks to this commander gear, and the Decathlon deck. Problem is, this commander gear was not easy to obtain. It was locked behind the commander rank, meaning you needed to reach commander on your own without this gear before you could redeem it for arena tickets. This was no easy feat, and it was expensive. But what if you just wanted to trade commander gear from one wizard to another? Well, KI labeled each piece as non-tradable, preventing you from depositing them in your shared bank. So you couldn't trade them, right? Right? This is where the mannequin glitch came into play. Over the years, players realized you could simply transfer non-tradable gear between wizards by attaching it to a mannequin in your house, picking up the mannequin, and placing the entire mannequin in your shared bank, since mannequins themselves aren't non-tradable. Then, when you'd withdraw the mannequin on another wizard, the non-tradable gear would stay equipped on it, allowing you to trade these non-tradable items. This exploit didn't just allow you to trade commander gear, but any non-tradable gear, as long as it was a hat, robe, or boots, because other types of gear can't be equipped on a mannequin. Sadly, KI eventually patched this glitch, so don't get too excited because it no longer works today. And with the introduction of 5th Age PvP in spring 2022, KI retired the commander set altogether, allowing players to keep any pieces they had, but without any stats. Lizzo. There's an NPC in Firecat Alley named Lizzo Firespitter, who's clearly a reference to the real-world music artist Lizzo. She was first revealed during the June 2021 KI Live.
Lizzo Firespitter, a musically inclined third-year fire student who's gone to Firecat Alley to help direct the musical the Fire Elves are putting on. Coming soon.
So naturally, there was a ton of community speculation if the real-world Lizzo herself would have some sort of collab with the game and voice her NPC's lines, just like Selena Gomez and Nick Jonas did back in the day. But KI producer Renee Wooten debunked this theory in their June 2021 producer's letter by referring to the Lizzo NPC as a pop culture reference, not in collaboration with any real-life person or celebrity. Now, this Lizzo-based NPC caused quite a bit of controversy during the summer 2021 test realm. Some players criticized KI for giving this NPC a slender character model, because Lizzo's main message revolves around plus-sized body positivity. But that wasn't the only thing that ticked people off. During the quest Witch Hunt, Lizzo Firespitter originally said, "Why are men great until they have to be great? Am I right?"
Why are men great until they have to be great? Am I right?
Whoa, hold on a minute.
Go ask
Why are men great until they have to be?
Oh
my god.
Even though this is just a reference to the lyrics of Lizzo's song Truth Hurts, the community was not happy with its sexist undertones, so after receiving backlash, KI removed this line entirely from the quest dialogue. Things got way worse in August 2023, when tons of allegations came out accusing Lizzo of creating a hostile work environment and sexually harassing her former employees. She faced an actual lawsuit alleging her of pressuring dancers into unwanted sexual situations, commenting on her backup dancers' weight gain, and making rehearsals completely miserable, leading one dancer to even soil herself. Oof. This news was especially shocking because Lizzo's always built her brand on body positivity and empowerment, so she was the last celebrity you'd think of that would ever end up in a controversy like this. Needless to say, the real-world Lizzo's career plummeted, yet the NPC remains in-game today. Crying Sky raid bans. As an effort to add more post-game content, KI recently introduced raids. They're basically incredibly hard dungeons for teams of 12 players, requiring a lot of coordination under a strict time limit. The newest raid, the Crying Sky raid, was introduced during the summer 2023 update. The raid was so difficult that even by the end of September, roughly 3 months after its release, still no players had yet to complete it, which was crazy, considering how sweaty players in top guilds are. So, KI had to go back and nerf several parts of it. However, when KI pushed these nerfs to Live Realm, they accidentally introduced a game-breaking bug. The final boss, Hunhao's second chance chest, was appearing right in the raid's spawn area, instead of after the boss fight. So you could literally enter the raid and just continuously re-roll the final boss's chest for all the top raid gear, which was incredibly unfair, considering these hats, robes, boots, and wands were arguably the best gear in the game at this time. So naturally, tons of players exploited this, which was risky, because remember when I said no players had yet completed the raid? That means no one had obtained the gear through normal means of defeating the final boss, Hunhao. So if you were caught roaming around in Crying Sky raid gear, it was obvious you got it through exploiting this bug. So naturally, a few days later on October 4th, 2023, Wizard101 tweeted, "Wizards, we've taken action against a handful of accounts due to the abuse of an unattended game feature." Gee, sounds familiar. KI went on to state that any players who rolled this chest 3 or more times would receive a 1-month suspension from the game. And according to Atmoplex, this suspension wave hit multiple notable players, such as a popular content creator, a central wiki master, 2 Final Bastion writers, hardcore raiders, and extra credits program participants. KI then took down raids for a week to patch the bug. And when asked if exploiters will be able to keep their items, community manager Kyle Icewielder confirmed, players that are being suspended are still keeping their items. This enraged the community because, well, why should suspended players be rewarded with top gear for exploiting the game? KI's removed items in the past from exploiters, so why not this time? The 1-month suspension almost seems worth it. At this point, many players suggested that the least KI can do is set a badge requirement on the raid gear to prevent exploiters from equipping it until after they legitimately beat the raid fair and square. I actually like this idea a lot. However, KI refused to do so, leading players to believe that they were too incompetent to code such a restriction. This prompted Atmoplex data miners to drop a hilarious video showing them fixing the code themselves to add a badge requirement to the gear in just 2 minutes, ridiculing KI. Another funny moment to come out of this controversy was the Discord exchange where community manager Spark asked who's all planning to raid today, followed by a player responding, "I think everyone but a few guilds that wanted to raid are suspended. Just a theory." And my personal favorite, where a player announced that their guild is raiding today at 7, followed by lead designer Ratbeard sarcastically clapping back, "Some will," rubbing salt in the wounds of suspended players. What do you think? Did KI make the right move by only suspending players for 1 month and letting them keep their items? Or should they have dropped permanent bans like in past situations? Or should they have done nothing at all, since technically it was their fault for introducing this bug? Let me know in the comments what you think. Early pet stats. In May 2010, KI released their Advanced Pets update, which added tons of new pet mechanics, including the stat-boosting talents we see on competitively trained pets today. But what if I told you that there were actually a few pets that originally gave fixed stat boosts, well before talents were ever a thing? That's right, let's talk about Wizard101's pre-talent stat-boosting pets. To start off, we have the Armored Skeleton pet, with a small 1% increase in power pip chance. This one's a weird case, because according to the wiki, it first appeared during beta testing way back in August 2008, but wasn't available in the final release until 2011. So it technically did exist during the beta with its unique power pip stat well before talents came out. But 1% is just so low that it never made a difference, even back in 2008, which is probably why KI let it keep its stat boost even to this day. Next, we have all the level 48 school-specific pets that were released in April 2009. Most people don't know this, but originally, each one of these pets not only gave a spell card, but also a fixed 5% increase in power pip chance, well before talents existed. This was pretty nice to have back in the day, but again, since power pip chance isn't that great of a stat, and since these pets were made available to every single player that reached level 48, having one didn't necessarily give you a competitive advantage. And once talents came out in May 2010, KingsIsle stripped away this stat from each pet, so now they just have their spell cards. Then there's the Magma Colossus, which was added to Diego's PvP item shop for 1,500 arena tickets during the April 2009 update. The same update that introduced level 48 school pets. According to the update notes, the Magma Colossus originally gave a 5% power pip chance increase, along with its Pierce card. Clearly, KI was experimenting hard this update with adding fixed stats to pets, before ultimately deciding to scrap them for talents a year later in May 2010. And just like all the school pets, the Magma Colossus also had its fixed stat removed but kept its card. Alright, so far these pre-talent stat boosting pets were pretty useful, but nothing controversial. Enter the Defender Pig, a pet that originally gave not only a Dryad card, but also a devastatingly high 5% resist bonus. That's as much as Heartsteel. It may not seem like a lot compared to today's pets, but back then, having an extra 5% resist made you way more tanky, giving you a great advantage in PvP. Now the reason this pet was so controversial is because it was only obtainable through purchasing a $20 Wizard101 gift card from Rite Aid or shoppers and redeeming it only during the month of July 2009. So yeah, this pet was hardlocked behind 3 things: money, physical location, and time. If you were a child whose parents wouldn't spend money on the game, you couldn't get it. If you didn't live in US or Canada, where Rite Aid or shoppers are located, you couldn't get it. And if you weren't around to redeem the gift card during that single 1-month window in July 2009, you get another pet instead. July 2008 wouldn't have worked because the game hadn't come out yet, and July 2010 and onward wouldn't have worked because that would be after Talents came out, during which KI stripped away the Defender Pig's 5% resist, but kept its Dryad card. Also, keep in mind this was before hatching was ever a thing, so you couldn't just hatch for one either. But yeah, if the stars aligned and you managed to get your hands on a Defender Pig in July 2009, you were unstoppable in PvP. I do find it funny that when those who originally had the Defender Pig complained about its stat removal when Talents came out, KI disingenuously responded with, "It's okay, because he now has the card and a chance at much more than just the one talent." Even though obviously this was a major nerf to the Defender Pig because now every pet can obtain every talent. So having a Defender Pig no longer gives you a competitive advantage. Yeah, this pet's no longer special. Crowns generators. It's not really worth covering this topic for long. It's 2023. If you don't know by now that not a single crowns generator you find online works, and they're all just scams to steal your account information, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, look at this one. It's literally asking for your username and password. Even as a kid, I never fell for that. But sadly, people still fall for these today and end up getting their accounts hacked. And let's be real, even if one did work and you somehow got infinite crowns, you just lose your account anyway because KI would flag your accounts and ban you. So yeah, it's a scam. Next. Dragonspire gear exploit. Apparently, upon the release of Dragonspire in January 2009, a lot of new gear mistakenly didn't have a level requirement at first. For instance, ordinary boss drops like the Hat of the Endless didn't initially say level 45 and up, meaning it could be equipped at any level. Now for a wizard questing in Dragonspire, that doesn't really matter, because odds are you're around level 45 anyway. But if you were to trade this gear to a brand new level 1 wizard, and then enter that wizard in PvP matches, you'd have a completely unfair advantage even just with that additional 200 health alone. After scouring through update notes online, I actually did find some evidence to confirm this rumor. In May 2009, KI officially added a level 45 requirement to the Lorekeeper's Hood, the Mantle of Imagination, the Hood of the Historian, and the Mythological Mantle. They also added a level 50 requirement to the Spider Keeper's Ice Mantle, meaning these items originally lacked level requirements. But upon fixing these items by adding their necessary level requirements, KI overlooked something major. They didn't automatically unequip this gear from low-level wizards, meaning if you had any equipped and didn't remove it, you could just keep exploiting it in low-level PvP. Drunk Seraph. Everyone knows the Seraph spell's classic singing voice. It's been in the game since day one. But what you might not know is that sometime around October 2009, KI temporarily changed the spell's audio, making it so much worse. They made her sound like a drunk woman singing opera. Take a listen. Naturally, the community was enraged by KI completely derailing such a beloved character's voice. So much so, that this new audio only lasted for 8 months, until KI reverted her voice back to normal in May 2010. According to the May 2010 update notes, the Seraph spell no longer has a sore throat, and her melodic voice has returned. Now, the reason for this sudden audio change was never discussed by KI, and has always remained a mystery. However, my speculation is that the opera singing was voiced by game director Leah Rubin, who's been known to voice other spells like Banshee. It was probably just recorded on a whim for fun, as a staff joke or something. I wouldn't dig much deeper. Let's just be glad it was reverted back. Wishing Well. The Wishing Well was a brand new feature that never made it past Test Realm back in October 2009. KI placed one in Wizard City, Crocotopia, Marleybone, Mushu, Dragonspire, and Grizzleheim. Basically, you toss some crowns into it, then get back some gold and possibly an item. You were limited to only a few attempts per day, and each subsequent attempt cost an increasing amount of crowns. Even though the idea was charming, the community responded very negatively to the idea of essentially adding gambling to a children's game. Oh, did this feedback age like milk. But it wasn't just the idea of gambling that bothered players, the rewards themselves sucked. I mean, most of the time you dump in crowns just to receive 20 gold without an item, but even if you were lucky enough to get an item, it was just a mistwood, or a treasure card, or a 10-minute transformation. Granted, this was all during Test Realm, so maybe the rewards could have been better if the feature ever made it to Live Realm, but I think it's safe to assume that KI never intended to actually give anything good away from these. It was just a fun-looking way to steal your money. On the forums, when asked if the Wishing Well will ever make a return in the future, KI staff member Zeke responded with, "Many things don't make it onto the Live Realm. This was one of them. The Wishing Well was removed based on community feedback." So yeah, just like the treasure card vault I covered in my part 1 video, the Wishing Well's fate had been sealed. A couple fun facts though, as you might have figured out by now, KI reworked the Wishing Well's concept into the second chance chests we see after fighting bosses today. Also, the original Wishing Well's model was later reworked into a housing item you can purchase from Roland Silverheart in the arena. But sadly, it's just a decoration and you can't actually interact with it. And lastly, for those of you that are very observant, yes, there is an interactive Wishing Well in the Ever After Village bundle house, but it has nothing to do with the original concept I'm talking about. It just gives a daily reward, like in every other bundle house. Stargator. Stargator is a rumored Wizard101 supervillain that caught the attention of many fans, as it's been referenced a few times throughout the game and news. During the quest Bean Me Up, Salty Prepper, a crazed conspiracy theorist, rambles about different ways the spiral could be destroyed, including from the Stargator, literally a gator that eats stars. Sounds ominous. And during the quest A Brief History of the Spiral, Bartleby says, "Beware the spiders, fire rains, the alligator eats the stars." So that's a second questline reference to the Stargator. Again, ominous. But that's not all. Weirdly enough, the 2021 magazine teaser for Lemuria shows interview with the Stargator. Obviously this was just thrown on there as an Easter egg, since we know now that the Stargator has nothing to do with this world. And lastly, the Monstrology entry for the Grandfather Spider actor Gummy Worm Mob in Sweetsburg Caramel states, also played Shane Von Shane, Archmagus Lorcan, and something called the Stargator. It's always typecast as villains. Alright, now it's confirmed in canon that Stargator's a true villain. Oh, and while I'm editing this video, it turns out that KI added one more reference in the new Wallaroo update. Thanks Courtney Ghosttail on Twitter for showing me. Over time, all these references stirred up lots of community speculation. Some think that Stargator could be some sort of Galactus-like villain in the Wizard101 storyline, since just like Galactus, this Stargator devours planetary and astral objects for survival or power. Others think it sounds like some SCP. Regardless, I think we can all agree that KingsIsle will be doing something with Stargator in the future, because the story writers hardly ever drop names like this by accident. I'd bet money it's a future arc villain. Super Fast Jaguar. There's only ever been 2 documented sightings in the entire game's lifespan of the elusive Super Fast Jaguar mount. This enigma of a mount has a disgustingly high 100% speed boost, literally doubling your speed. One sighting was documented on Wizard101 Central way back in July 28, 2010, and the other sighting was uploaded more recently to Reddit on November 5th, 2021. Notice how in the second sighting it says Vlad Super Fast Jaguar? That's because apparently this mount is only available to KingsIsle staff, so maybe this one belonged to this guy. I don't know, he worked at KingsIsle from 2006 to 2014, it could have been him. Anyway, It's not clear from these images what the super fast Jaguar looked like, but I'm assuming it appears identical to the regular Jaguar mount sold in the crown shop, because why would KI waste their time adding a new model to the game if just a few staff members are going to use it? And lastly, just for reference, the fastest speed boost you can currently legally give your wizard is only 63%, by equipping a 55% speed increasing mount and the 8% speed increasing boots the comet. So it's too bad only KI staff can access the super fast Jaguar, because I'd love to get my hands on a 100% speed increasing mount. Socia. Just like Hero 101, which I covered in my part 1 video, KingsIsle had a slew of other scrap projects as well, which never made it past early stages of development. One of these projects was Socia, a scrapped social MMO. So think Wizard101, but without the questing and combat, and instead a heavier emphasis on getting to know other players. Like VR chat, but without the VR. There's hardly any public information known about this game, but after thorough research, here's what I found. First, there's 3 wall hangings in Wizard101, which are believed to be early screenshots from Socia. Notice how this wall hanging closely resembles Pigswick Academy, meaning perhaps some early zones in Socia were reworked into Wisteria. Next we have one single leaked screenshot from Socia, depicting an elegant interior of some building. My guess is that since this was going to be a social MMO, there would have been multiple main hubs for players to hang out and interact in, like the Commons in Wizard101. This elegant building was probably one of them. The last piece of information I could find was that Socia was headed by Tom Hall, who actually served as the creative director for famous games like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. He worked at KingsIsle from February 2005 to January 2011, indicating that Socia was most likely being developed around the early days of Wiz. Sadly, that's all we know about Socia. Back in 2021, Atmoplex actually tweeted out asking former KI employees to anonymously divulge more information about the game, but unfortunately, nobody came forward. It's too bad KI scrapped Socia. I'm sure it would have been a cool game, especially considering director Tom Hall's wide range of experience on other successful games. Infinite Crowns Code. This is the biggest Crowns Code scandal in all of Wizard101 history. I'm actually shocked by this story. As you know, KingsIsle often funds content creators' crowns giveaways by supplying them with free Crowns codes to give out to their followers. Well, on May 18th, 2023, KI posted on the forums about a bugged Infinite Crowns code they accidentally gave away to a creator. We were recently alerted to a Crowns giveaway code that was able to be redeemed more often than it should have. Oops, our bad. They go on to say, don't worry, we are not planning mass sanctions, however accounts found to have clearly exploited the code excessively will be sanctioned. Alright, we've seen cases of players exploiting KI's bugs to generate infinite resources before, but this time it's taken to a whole new level. Turns out, the YouTuber who was given the Infinite Crowns code, Smojo101, redeemed over 11 million crowns from it. That's insane! To put it in perspective, that's roughly $15,000 worth of crowns. Then he made the dumb decision to share the code with his followers, who also went crazy redeeming it over and over again. And it doesn't end there. You may think someone who just stole $15,000 from a company would stay out of the public eye to not draw attention to themselves. But nope, Smojo did the complete opposite. He unapologetically bragged about exploiting this Infinite Crowns code all over social media, essentially leaving a complete paper trail of his fraudulent behavior and nuking his reputation with KI. And when I say unapologetically, I mean it. This man did not care. Take a look at his last YouTube video before getting banned from Wiz and stepping away from social media. The video consisted of him dropping 200,000 crowns on packs, which, okay, maybe you can argue 200,000 crowns isn't enough to warrant any suspicion. I mean, 200,000 crowns is a lot, but not egregious. However, at the bottom of the screen, it explicitly shows he has almost 5 million total crowns sitting there. 5 million on his public YouTube video. I'm just shocked he didn't blur that out. It's like he wanted to get caught. And to make matters worse, at the time, Smojo was in the Extra Credits program. If you don't know, Extra Credits consists of a small group of content creators handpicked by KI based on their integrity and good standing with the community to take part in special events. So basically, if you're in the program, KI endorses you. Yet still, Smojo was going around shamelessly bragging about committing fraud and regretting nothing. The story gets even crazier though. Smojo didn't just spend all 11 million crowns on himself. He traded tons away in underground trading servers, roping so many other players into this mess, putting all their accounts at risk of being banned. Here's a leaked screenshot of just a fraction of his transactions with community members, showing he traded with at least 54 customers. Within no time, KingsIsle found out about Smojo abusing their bugged code, mass distributing it to followers, and profiting off trading away fraudulent crowns in Discord servers, all while shamelessly bragging without any signs of remorse. Needless to say, KI was not happy. They not only removed him from their Extra Credits program, but also flat out banned him from the game. Oh, Gladrocker. I'm flattered. Since then, Smojo's been completely MIA. No apology, no more videos, no more Twitter. It's not really clear why he decided to nuke his reputation with KI in the community, other than pure greed, which is strange, because he was actually a good editor and pulled in a decent amount of views. I guess he made enough money laundering crowns to quit YouTube. Caps abuse. I actually didn't know about this until it was brought to my attention by a community member. We all know today you can't use capital letters in the game's filtered text chat. If you try typing any, they'll just appear as lowercase. But turns out, capital letters were actually allowed in text chat back during the game's 2008 release. Then, a few years later, during the February 2011 update, KI made the conscious decision to remove them. According to the official update notes as well as a KI staff forums post, they removed capital letters due to the increasing amount of players using the caps to talk around chat filters. Turns out, players would disguise inappropriate messages by emphasizing certain letters in normal sentences with caps. As a clean example, look at this sentence. "Hi guys everyone, is strong, big and delightful." Looks innocent, but notice how if you take each capital letter to form new words and split them up based on comma placement, you'd get "he is bad" as a result. So yeah, that's the method players would use to bypass chat filters. And this was just a clean example. Obviously there were toxic players using this method to say racist, sexist, and other harmful things. And passwords too. Players allegedly shared passwords this way, which violates the game's terms of use. Celestian Trident. I don't want to spend too much time on this next controversy, only because it's not as big as some others on the iceberg, but it still gets brought up by the community today. Here's the story. Along with the Celestia preview update back in July 2010, KI added a bunch of new items to the crown shop. This included 3 new Celestia-themed wands, the Celestian Trident, which dealt 100 damage per hit, the Cerulean Edge, which also dealt 110 damage per hit, and the Celestian Sword, which dealt 95 damage per hit. They each cost 5,000 crowns, which was pretty expensive. However, for some reason shortly after their release, KI nerfed only the Celestian Trident's damage from 110 to 105. It was an incredibly small nerf, but that didn't stop players from complaining, especially because the other 2 wands were left untouched. So why did KI nerf only one of them? Well, after receiving massive community backlash in the forums, KI staff member Lydia Greyrose admitted this change was a mistake. Well, it's confirmed, we made an error and the Celestian Trident was indeed inadvertently changed. In the very next update patch a couple weeks later, KI reverted the Celestian Trident back to its original 110 damage. So yeah, like I said, not too big of a deal. But considering this was one of the earliest controversies in Wizard101 history, tons of players vividly remember it today. Ghost sigils. This one's weird. In the game, there's 3 sigils that lay completely out of bounds, that are only visible through photomancy, the in-game camera mode. These became known by the community as ghost sigils, since you normally can't access them without using cheats. There's one in Golem Court, and 2 in the Wizard City Library. Let's start with Golem Court. To find the ghost sigil, head left to the drains entrance, then get close to the wall. Press Z to open the photomancy UI, and use your arrow keys to position the camera out of bounds. If you get the angle right, you'll be able to view this mysterious sigil in the distance. Now normally you can't clip out of bounds to access it, but over the years, some players used exploits to do so, and turns out the sigil works. I'm not even kidding. Apparently it's a fully functional sigil that takes you right into the Golem Tower, which is weird because the Golem Tower has been around since the beta, and it's never been a team dungeon. Every instance is single player, which is why the tower itself doesn't have a sigil. So perhaps when designing it way back in 2007, KingsIsle considered making it a team dungeon and tested it using the sigil. Then after deciding to make it a solo instance, instead of scrapping the sigil, they just tossed it out of bounds, not expecting players to actually find it. Great job, KI. It's worth noting that if more than one player tries to enter this ghost sigil at a time, it'll place each player into their own individual Golem Tower instance. And allegedly, if you click Team Up, it'll actually show up in the kiosk without a name. That's insane. The second and third ghost sigils are located in the Wizard City Library. To view them, head up the staircase and enter the back rooms. Head down the left hallway until you reach the end. Then turn around and press Z to open up the photomancy UI, and use your arrow keys once again to view out of bounds. You'll notice 2 ghost sigils below the floor in the distance. Apparently, these ones are not interactive at all, even if you glitch out of bounds to access them. So why do they even exist in the first place? It's not like there's ever been a dungeon in here like the Golem Tower that KI decided to scrap the sigil from. A fan theory posted by Wizard101 Central user Dylan Windwalker in October 2020 suggested that these sigils were going to be used for new Lore Master bosses, and that at the time, the Dragonspire Lore Master's spell drops were going to be split among multiple Lore Masters across libraries in all worlds, instead of being hoarded by just the original, making it easier to farm for specific spells you wanted. Keep in mind this theory was made before KI removed spell drops from the Dragonspire Lore Master, so it was definitely plausible at the time. And given that these sigils don't take you into any existing dungeons, unlike the Golem Court one, this further proves that KI was working on new bosses in this zone and scrapped them before completion. Pretty cool. Vendor trash. This one's real interesting. Almost unsettling. There's a weird retired reagent in the game called vendor trash that just looks like a bunch of sticks, but it's actually the rarest reagent in the entire game. It looks like something data mined straight out of the beta files, but oh, it's real, and some of you might not even know you have it. Back during Celestia's release in October 2010, KI introduced a new set of perfect gemstone reagents. These could all be purchased from the vendor in Celestia base camp, and they were used in many new recipes. Here's the thing though, you know how you could obtain reagents from multiple sources, like not just from a vendor, but also as a quest reward? Well, upon Celestia's release, anytime you'd receive a perfect jade from a quest, it was actually a bugged version that KI accidentally put into the game's files. According to staff member Lydia Grayrose on the forums, this bugged perfect jade didn't have card art, it didn't work with the recipe, and it didn't stack with the other perfect jade. It was, in essence, garbage. So you'd expect KI to fix this bugged perfect jade in the next update patch by simply turning it into a normal perfect jade, right? Right? Well, instead, soon after this bug was reported, KI converted this bugged perfect jade into a weird, brand new reagent called vendor trash, its name being a reference to how it's, well, garbage. This vendor trash reagent has absolutely no purpose in the game. It's the only reagent that doesn't do anything. You can't use it in any recipes, and it's even labeled no auction, so the only thing KI lets you do with it is just quick sell it for a measly 100 gold. Super weird. It just seems so cursed. Hey, if you played back during Celestia's release, I recommend checking your inventory because you might not even know you have one. Public PvP ring. During the game's beta back in August 2008, there was actually an open PvP ring right in the center of the arena, which any player could join at any time. It was a great place to make friends. There was something magical about how it drew players together. In fact, some of the very first fan-made Wizard101 videos featured Max Wizards battling it out on this public PvP ring. Anyway, it existed for a few months in the final release, up until its removal in January 2009, when KI added the PvP queuing and ranking system. Weirdly enough, later on KI added a new public PvP ring in Outer Yard Avalon, but nobody actually uses that one, so it doesn't have the same charm and nostalgia as the original. Grizzleheim cryptography. All the gibberish you see carved into runes in the background of Grizzleheim isn't gibberish at all. It's actually KI's very own Grizzleheim language. Celestia has its own language too, and luckily for us, each one is a mono-alphabetic substitution cipher, meaning each made-up character directly corresponds to an English letter, meaning we can crack the code. But how do we crack it? To do so, we need to look into a retired quest KingsIsle completely took out of the game, the original Celestia prequest, which I actually covered in my Part 1 video. In this quest, before you reach the Spiral Geographic Society warehouse, you're tasked with finding the Stone of Mazaroth, a direct reference to the real-life Rosetta Stone. Quick history lesson, the Rosetta Stone was an ancient Egyptian artifact containing the same text in 3 languages, Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. Its discovery in 1799 enabled scholars to translate all 3 languages, unlocking the secrets of ancient Egyptian writing. So, KI's version, the Stone of Mazaroth, works the same way. It contains the phrase Sphinx of Black Quartz, judge my vow, in all 3 in-game languages, Grizzleheim, Celestia, and English. This sentence is particularly useful because it contains one of every English letter, allowing us to easily match each corresponding character in Grizzleheim and Celestia. I gotta say, I do find it very strange that KingsIsle completely scrapped the only quest that teaches you how to decipher these languages, because today you literally cannot access the Stone of Mazaroth to translate Grizzleheim and Celestia runes anymore. It's no longer canon, but fortunately for us, popular Wizard101 fan site Legends of the Spiral created an easy-to-use translator tool. Oh, it's worth noting there's also a second Grizzleheim runic alphabet, but for the sake of time I'm not going to cover it. Now that you know all this, next time you're questing in Grizzleheim or Celestia, take a look around. You'll actually be able to read and understand the text on background objects, which I think is pretty cool. Michael. This is something that really only caught the attention of the Wizard101 subreddit. Beginning in January 2020, everyone started noticing a player named Michael spinning endlessly in the commons, specifically in Realm Wu. The only gear he had equipped was his paintbrush wand and nothing else, just a simple man on a simple mission, to spin. Due to the nature of the subreddit, people started developing theories. Some said he's been spinning since the creation of the spiral, some said he's God himself, some dared not question the spinning one, some said, nice, and others just figured he was a hall monitor, because, well, nobody would suspect him. It's the perfect cover-up. TC shops. This one's a core memory for veteran players. Back in the early days, players would stand behind the fence in the shopping district, pretending to own their own treasure card shop. These shop owners would trade away treasure cards for crowns items in other TC. Unfortunately, this often resulted in scams, where shop owners would just log off after being gifted. But if you ask any long-term player, they'll remember these TC shops fondly. Disney acquisition. According to the Wiki101 official Twitter account, there is a rumor that Disney offered to acquire KingsIsle Entertainment in the early 2010s, presumably following the promotions in Wizard101 with Selena Gomez and Nick Jonas in 2010 and 2011, who were both associated with Disney at the time. This sounds pretty crazy, but apparently the same anonymous former employee that broke a non-disclosure agreement to expose Hero 101 back in 2017 also revealed that Disney offered to acquire KI. So that's their source, but there's no screenshots of this discussion, so it's not confirmed. But could you imagine if Disney actually bought KI? Who knows what state Wizard101 would be in today? Disney's other MMOs at the time were Toontown, Club Penguin, Pirates of the Caribbean Online, and World of Cars Online, and we all know how they turned out. So maybe it's a good thing Disney never took over Wiz. Omnipotent. This one's similar to the Hellhound Mandela effect I covered in my part 1 video, because it also deals with sacrilegious elements, except this time it's real. As everyone knows, every player's given a title based on their level. Novice is for wizards level 1 through 4, Apprentice is for levels 5 through 9, Initiate is for 10 through 14, and so on. Well, during Avalon's release in May 2012, KI increased the level cap from 70 to 80, meaning it was time for a new level 80 title. As most players know, KI chose the title Archmage, however this wasn't their original plan. Back during Avalon's test realm, KI initially wanted the title to be Omnipotent instead, which caused major backlash from religious members of the community. Take a look at this thread from Wizard101 Central. I am a Christian. I know many people may not share my beliefs, and what you believe is your business. However, the title of Omnipotent is actually quite offensive to my religion. The exact definition of the word omnipotent is almighty or infinite in power as God, having very great or unlimited authority or power. No one is almighty or all-powerful, only God is. To be called this on a game or wherever is blasphemous, meaning to be compared to God. This is a sin. This kicked off a massive argument between religious and non-religious members of the community, debating whether or not the title Omnipotent is problematic. And when I say massive, I mean 11 pages worth of discussion. KI immediately noticed all the backlash, and fortunately for those offended, they changed the level 80 title from Omnipotent to Archmage right before the Avalon update hit the live realm. Wow factor. This is actually incredibly useful knowledge that every pet trainer should know. Basically, every single pet in the game has an additional stat that's hidden from players called the wow factor. A pet's wow factor determines how likely you'll get that same pet back from a hatch. These numbers run from 0 to 10. The lower the wow factor, the more likely it'll return. The higher the wow factor, the less likely it'll return. So, if you hatch a blood bat that has a wow factor of 1, with a deer knight that has a wow factor of 9, you'll almost always get a blood bat back. Now, KI carefully hid this information from the game, meaning the only way to view your pet's wow factor is through data mining. Thankfully though, some amazing data miners out there put together tables online displaying every pet's wow factor, so you can easily look up your own pets on there. And if you like math, you should check out this Reddit post from user Collector of Things analyzing wow factors, showcasing some really detailed charts and graphs. Very interesting stuff. Old Ice Wyvern. This one's disturbing. Way back during the game's beta in August 2008, the Ice Wyvern spell card artwork looked a lot different, almost scarier. According to some early accounts, its artwork was changed to what we see today around July 14th, 2009. I'm not sure how the old version made it past beta testing. If you take a close look, it doesn't even look like an ice wyvern. Its horns, its eyes, its face shape, its teeth, every feature just feels off. Disturbing. Woo Die Shop. This one's a core memory for so many early Wiz players. Back in the early 2010s, the absolute wildest spot in the game was the Woo Realm Die Shop. It was up there with the Scarecrow Death Tower in terms of just how untamed it was. It was perpetually crowded with hordes of players role-playing, reporting, and harassing each other 24/7. They didn't care about chat filters or violating terms of use, which ultimately led to their demise, because KI eventually caught on and started infiltrating the Woo Die Shop with hall monitors, muting almost everyone in there. Those were the days. Alpha Disc. Wizard101's beta, which ran for just 1 month between August 6th and September 2nd, 2008, is very well documented. I actually have a 30-minute video about it on my channel, so feel free to check it out sometime. However, there's not much known about Wizard101's alpha, which ran long before that, sometime in 2007. The alpha was the very first version of the game, and you couldn't even download it from the website. It was only made available on hard copy discs, which were distributed to family and friends of KingsIsle employees. A few years ago, on July 28, 2021, Atmoplex tweeted out asking if anyone in the community has a copy of the disc, along with some leaked photos of it. Their purpose, of course, was to preserve the game and data mine it to find unused early content. This tweet ignited a spark in the community. This was the first time most players even heard of the disc, so they were dying to know the secrets inside it. Finally, after 2 years of silence, a disc was found. On March 27, 2023, Atmoplex surprised the community with some breaking news. Last week, a Wizard101 press disc from 2007 was listed for public auction on eBay. Thanks to one of our generous followers, we now have the contents of said disc. They also provided a link to download all the disc's files. Oh my god, the alpha disc was found and all the files are publicly available to download? This seemed too good to be true. Well, it was. Turns out this wasn't the real alpha disc. It wasn't a fake either. It was just a small unrelated press disc from 2007 containing screenshots and videos of the game. So like a demo. This fooled a lot of community members who were expecting the actual alpha disc, but looking back, the press disc itself looked slightly different, so people should have known. Reddit user a non-W101 disc buyer, the person who actually bought this disc, further explained, "This is a press kit disc found by user Jacob4241 at his local thrift store. The idea is that it has data on it intended to be sent to press companies like newspapers or magazines so they could use the pictures to help create articles about the game and such." To this day, the search for the actual alpha disc continues. Hopefully a former KI employee will someday leak it. Pigeon Patrol. In 2017, there was a group of hackers known as Pigeon Patrol. They had one single mission: to shut down Wizard101 servers using a distributed denial of service attack, or DDoS for short. This just means flooding a server with so much traffic that it crashes. That was their goal for Wiz. Anyway, Pigeon Patrol's motive for doing this was to blackmail KI into unbanning all their friends' sanctioned accounts. This included a request to unban controversial YouTuber Dakota Earthhorn, who was banned for a number of reasons, including account sharing and harassing other YouTubers. It's not clear whether Dakota was behind Pigeon Patrol, or if they were just using him to create more drama since he was such a public figure at the time. Anyway, Pigeon Patrol was evil. They picked the perfect time to wreak as much havoc on the Wizard101 community as they could, during Wizard101's 9th birthday celebration. For context, during the first week of September 2017, KingsIsle scheduled special member benefits and events to celebrate the game's 9th birthday. So, Pigeon Patrol waited for this week-long birthday celebration to start, then repeatedly DDoS'd the game's servers, crashing them multiple times throughout the event. This put an overwhelming amount of pressure on KI, as fans were constantly freaking out about getting kicked off the game. On the forums, you can actually see updates from KI regarding all these attacks. On September 1st, staff member Dorgan said, "Since yesterday, KingsIsle has been mitigating severe DDoS attacks against our games Wizard101 and Pirate101. This means your gameplay will be impacted until we can resolve the issue. Many will be unable to log in." Then, 2 days later, on September 3rd, as an update, we continued to work on countering the recent DDoS attacks. This, of course, implied that attacks were still coming in. Then on the 4th, our tech wizards have continued to work throughout the holiday weekend to address the DDoS attacks, which are ongoing and happen sporadically both day and night. This one's kinda sad. The fact that real people are being affected by this, having to work during their holiday weekends, is just unfortunate. By September 9th, KI still couldn't fend off these incoming DDoS attacks. Unfortunately, a new round of DDoS attacks resurfaced today. We continue to work toward a more permanent solution. Thank you for your patience. Players were growing concerned. It's now been 9 days since the first attack. How could such a well-established gaming company not know how to manage cyber attacks from disgruntled players? Surely the cybersecurity department at KI isn't that unqualified, right? Well, eventually, KI did put an end to Pigeon Patrol's DDoS attacks, and as compensation for players who couldn't log on during this time, KI extended member benefits and special events an extra 12 days through September 17th. Yay! As for Pigeon Patrol, they faded out of existence. I'm assuming KI took legal action against them. It's also worth noting that in addition to cyber attacks, they allegedly scammed tons of players. Not cool. KI layoffs. Even though this topic gets brought up a lot by the community, I wasn't able to find too much information on it, and that's because layoff statistics in general are usually kept out of the public eye. But apparently, on May 12, 2016, KingsIsle laid off 72 employees from its Austin office, apparently due to the failure of their mobile game department. To put this in perspective, that's nearly half the company that was fired. I found a very negative Glassdoor review written by a disgruntled former KI employee in July 2017 that confirms this. According to them, KI lost over 90 employees to layoffs last year thanks to their failed mobile transition and are suffering severe attrition on a weekly basis. Brutal. Also, around this time in 2016, beloved member of the KingsIsle team, Layla Ulrich, who served as a community manager under the alias Lydia Greyrose, stopped appearing in KI Lives, leading to suspicion that she was laid off. And unfortunately, these rumors were later confirmed to be true, which was very sad news for the community. It's because of how attached the community becomes to particular staff members who put themselves in the spotlight that layoffs are a more sensitive topic and have actual impact on the community. Nana is cancelled. In November 2020, KI released the first world of Arc 4, Caramel. This whimsical German Candyland was headed by Nana, an elderly hamster whose main objective was to spread caramel candy all over the spiral. So a hamster with a candy business. That's not going to be annoying. To help promote this upcoming world, KI used a new marketing tactic they've never tried before. In May 2020, 5 months prior to Caramel's release, KI launched a brand new Twitter account called Nana's Caramel Delights, role-playing as the fictitious Nana herself. Here, Nana tweeted about redeemable codes, teasers, and silly remarks about the upcoming world. However, on June 24th, 2020, just like most other celebrities on Twitter, this account tweeted something problematic which they'd soon regret. To all our dearies in Azteca, never say die with a full mouth of Zabal bites. This, of course, was referencing the destruction of Azteca and the extinction of the Aztecosaurs. After receiving backlash, a week later, Nana tweeted, "It has recently come to my attention that Nana's recent tweet about Zabal bites may have been in poor taste. It was not Nana's intention to make light of the struggles of the Aztecosaurs currently suffering from meteor showers. Nana would never do such a thing. To make up for it, we will be discontinuing Zabal bites and granting all Aztecosaurs a free one-day pass to the lovely town of Sweetsburg." Still, it was too late. The damage had been done. Nana was cancelled. Her final tweet was on November 18th, 2020, before deciding to leave the platform. And definitely not because Caramel hit Live Realm that day and KI no longer needed the account for promotional purposes. Eldritch Tower. In January 2019, data mining accounts shocked players with some leaked text from the game's files about a mysterious new dungeon, the Eldritch Tower, which to this day still remains a mystery. The leaked text shows the dungeon's name, of course, is the Eldritch Tower, Eldritch meaning weird and sinister, or ghostly. Apparently it's meant for wizards level 70 and up. and you only have one chance to defeat the master of the Eldritch Tower. After you enter, the sigil outside is no longer active, meaning it's most likely a one-shot dungeon like the Rattlebones Exalted duel. So perhaps this Eldritch Tower would have appeared in the Crown Shop along with the other one-shot dungeons. And as if this text wasn't intriguing enough already, Wizard101 fan site SwordRoll posted screenshots identifying housing items that very clearly listed the Eldritch Tower as a location where you can find them. So not only was text from the Eldritch Tower data mined from the game's files, but now we can clearly see references to it through the item identifier in the actual game. And the real kicker is that you could still see these references to this day. No joke. This is actual footage of my own wizard identifying housing items in 2023, 4 years after the text was leaked. So anyone speculating that this text was just added to the files as a trick to freak out data miners is wrong. The Eldritch Tower is somewhere in the game. Of course, all this hype led to a ton of fan speculation. When players first found out about the Eldritch Tower in January 2019, many of them thought this would be the next Castle Darkmoor, a max-level side dungeon between story arcs. Think about it. Arc 2 finished with the release of Chrysalis Part 2 in April 2014. Then Darkmoor was released several months later in November 2014. So with that logic, since Arc 3 had just finished with the release of Imperia Part 2 just a few months back in November 2018, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume this strange Eldritch Tower would be another Darkmoor-style max-level side dungeon, coming right around the corner. The only counterpoint to this is that the leaked text shows level 70 and up, and obviously any side dungeon coming after Imperia Part 2 would be for level 130 and up. But who knows if that level requirement was just a placeholder, or if there's different versions for different levels, like the Rattlebones duels. The final theory, which I personally believe the most, is that the Eldritch Tower is a bundle house. Stay with me here. When identifying the tribe tent housing item, it shows it's obtainable from gold chests in the Eldritch Tower and the bundle house Nomad's Camp. But there aren't any actual gold chests in Nomad's Camp. When the game says gold chest in Nomad's Camp, it's really referring to the interactive daily reward in Nomad's Camp. So since the same category and icon is used for both locations, you can assume that the Eldritch Tower is also a bundle house, with its own interactive daily reward, and that's how these housing items are obtainable. Also, since so many Terror's Horde Pack Darkmoor themed housing items list the Eldritch Tower as their main location through the item identifier, we can assume the theme of this bundle house would have been dark, eerie, and spooky, with some sort of dungeon attached with monsters, which of course is where the leaked text would come into play. A player even asked about this mysterious Eldritch Tower on the forums back in May 2020, which community manager Spark replied to with a link to SwordRoll's article on it. So KingsIsle is very much aware of everything surrounding this. Today, references to the Eldritch Tower still exist in the game's code, but nobody's been able to data mine any more information about it. No one even knows what it looks like, because even though there's been fan art, the original concept art itself has never been leaked. All we know is that it's really creepy, because again, Googling Eldritch brings up horrifying imagery, so who knows what could be lurking inside. Child predators. Earlier in the video I talked about WizHex, a trend from the early 2010s where players would find strangers, then engage in adult roleplay with them in their dorm rooms. This again is where phrases like takes off clothes became popular because of just how ridiculous they sounded in a children's game. But that's the thing. Wizard101 is a children's game, and while most players were probably partaking in this trend as a joke to troll their friends, there were actual child predators mixed into the crowd, which is no laughing matter. I'm gonna read you a short excerpt from a comment posted by a viewer on my Iceberg Part 1 video, just so you can get an idea of how bad things were. There were individuals and groups that would hang out in the commons and try to take advantage of young players. I unfortunately had a personal experience with this. Being very young, somewhere between 9 and 12, and living in a very sheltered life, I was very naive. I ended up being sucked into some sort of family dynamic clan in the commons, and wanting to feel part of the group, I started decorating houses to give a sort of family home vibe. I agreed to marry some random whiz guy, we'll call him Jay. Jay would often ask me to take off all my gear and stand next to the bed upstairs with him while he tried to type explicit things despite the filters. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but he would do this every time I logged on, and I did whatever he asked because I wanted very badly to be part of a group. Eventually, when things progressed too far and he started asking about personal information, I got weirded out, and even if I didn't know exactly what was happening, I left and didn't return to the game for a year. It really disturbed me, and now that I'm much older and looking back, I'm absolutely disgusted to have 1, been taken advantage of in a game I thought was safe, and 2, to sadly recognize how many other children were treated the exact same way. Luckily for this individual, they were able to recognize and escape the situation before things got even worse. But I'm sure a lot of other underage Wizard101 players were tricked into unknowingly giving away personal information to predators, putting their lives at stake. It's thoughts like these that send shivers down my spine. And even without exchanging personal information, just engaging in any form of adult roleplay online with a child is outright disgusting. Fortunately, these days, adult roleplay is no longer a trend in the game, and WizHex is a thing of the past. Purple guy. This one creeps me out. Deep in the game's files lies this weird image of a purple guy. Apparently, it's the card art used for one of the rat's minions' cheat spells, which is normally inaccessible to players. But through data mining, you'll find a file called summonedimages/spellstormtitan.dds, and in it lies this abomination. What is it? What's it looking at? Why is it naked? Chrysalis Killing Spree. Wizard101 covers some heavy topics, with each world being dark in their own way. Crocotopia deals with slavery, Azteca deals with impending doom, Caramel deals with inhumane levels of corporate greed, but the darkest world by far is Chrysalis, which covers topics like colonization, war, a primal evil awakening, and the inevitable destruction of the universe. So it's no surprise that the game really picks up in intensity once you reach this world, pushing the limits of its E10 and up rating. One tiny detail most players don't know that's incredibly disturbing appears in the Chrysalis defeat enemy badges. For every other world in the game, when you hover over a defeat enemy badge, the badge descriptor uses the word defeat. Okay, that's normal. But for Chrysalis, the word used in each badge descriptor is kill. This very intentional word choice made by KI goes unnoticed by most players. Killing and defeating are not the same thing. In fact, most games targeted towards children avoid using words like kill and die, and instead have a canon way of defeating enemies without actually killing them off, because killing is too dark. For instance, when a Pokemon loses its health, it doesn't actually die. Instead, it faints and returns to its Pokeball before getting its health restored. And in Fortnite, when you defeat an opponent, they don't actually die. Instead, they get eliminated from the game and sent back to the lobby. And in most cases in Wizard101, you're simply defeating enemies in combat without actually killing them. Think back to every boss you're able to speak with after defeating. They're not dead, otherwise you couldn't talk to them. Or how in PvP, when defeating an opponent causes a headache and sends them back to the arena. But not in Chrysalis. In Chrysalis, you are murdering your opponent. The game stores an active kill count, and you, as the wizard, are more than happy to go on a killing spree, achieving these badges. Disturbing dialogue. Wizard101's officially rated everyone 10 and up, meaning it is a game targeted towards children, even if its actual demographic is mostly adults ages 20 to 35, according to MGI's recent reports. So the game usually doesn't go overboard with fantasy violence. Even when covering darker topics, it's pretty tame. Just look at Caramel. But occasionally the dialogue gets dark, and when I say dark, I mean disturbingly dark. When Grandmother Raven hands baby Mallory to Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga goes,
I don't understand, Grandmother. What am I to do with this baby? I'm not hungry right now.
implying she eats children. In Castle Darkmoor, when Shane Von Shane introduces you to the first boss, Howling Chaney, he says,
This is Howling Chaney, a poor, savage beast whose life is limited to small joys. Howling Chaney, cryptography lungs.
And then there's Chrysalis, which again is on a whole other level. As I already mentioned, Chrysalis is the darkest world in the game, and its dialogue certainly lives up to it. This poor blind mouse who's being abused by a praying mantis named Zanza says if she doesn't get her honey, she'll spread me on her toast instead. If you know anything about praying mantises versus mice in real life, then this quote hits even harder. Upon meeting the NPC Cosmos in Fort Rakius, he goes,
The captain sent you to disturb me? I will rend you with my axe and horns, and the scent of your spilled blood will be my perfume.
Everyone in Chrysalis just takes things to the next level, and don't even get me started on the bosses. Belosto Toebiter says,
Let me pierce your skin. My saliva will reduce your ego. Soon you'll be nothing more than a flashback of delicious juices.
Timon Whiteflame says,
No, I don't think so. You are too young, too fresh. But I'll gut you and read my answers in your entrails.
dialogue about gutting and playing with your wizard's internal organs just doesn't sit right for a kid's game. There's a lot of this too. Morganth's Eye says,
Cravenly, gut and skin the wizard, then bring me the pelt.
And to top it all off, the world's final boss, Morganth herself, goes,
Your blood shall water the foundation of my new universe. The Shadow Web!
I can keep going, but you get the idea. Everyone's just so bloodthirsty. Heather the Wizard. I want to start this section off by saying please don't send hate to anyone mentioned in this iceberg video. With that said, Heather the Wizard was a popular but controversial Wizard101 content creator around the mid-2010s. She was disliked by the community for many reasons, including starting drama with other WizTubers, having an obnoxious attitude with community members, smoking on stream, catfishing, and worst of all, grooming minors, which is disgusting and illegal. Her most well-known scandal was her online relationship with YouTuber The Real J, where she catfished as an 18-year-old girl while apparently being in her mid-40s to e-date him. It is worth noting that Jay himself wasn't a minor at the time, thank God, but he was still very young, probably around 18 or 19 years old. Now, just a heads up, there's a lot to this story, and since I wasn't around the community at the time, I didn't witness it firsthand, but after researching and discussing with community members, as far as I know, the story goes like this. Around 2014, Heather was trying to grow her YouTube channel. The best way to do this at the time was through collaboration with other creators, preferably controversial ones, as they garner the most views. So, Heather first turned to Dakota Earthhorn, one of the most controversial WizTubers in Wizard101 history. Dakota turned Heather away as he was put off by her begging for shoutouts.
And when she made her channel, she started messaging me and she was like, oh, do you think you can give me a shout out? And she was begging me for a shout out. It was probably the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
After things didn't work out with Dakota, Heather ended up talking to The Real J, another somewhat controversial WizTuber at the time. Heather got very close to Jay online and they started e-dating. At this time, Jay was around 18 years old, but Heather was somewhere in her mid-40s. However, Jay didn't know this because he never met Heather in person, nor had they video chatted. Apparently, Heather would always come up with excuses as to why she couldn't turn her camera on. Eventually, things started getting suspicious, so Heather sent some selfies to Jay, proving she was an 18-year-old girl. But turns out she was sending selfies of a completely different person, some random teenage girl she found on Facebook. I'll keep her name anonymous. Once Jay found out, things exploded. He began making videos about being catfished by her, which spread the news like wildfire. Everyone started getting involved. Soon the petition "Ban YouTuber heatherthewizard" from Wizard101 was created, gaining 582 supporters. People were creating fake Twitter accounts impersonating Heather to expose and tarnish her. Every WizTuber at the time was uploading videos about the scandal too, spreading hate towards Heather. Still, Heather had a somewhat large following at the time, so in return, she sent her supporters to harass and DDoS any WizTubers hating on her. This included doxing Jay himself by giving out his phone number to her followers so they could harass him. Eventually, when things calmed down, Heather herself admitted to using fake selfies and finally showed her face on camera, revealing herself to be a lot older, looking somewhere in her mid-40s. And there you go, that's the story. After the scandal, Heather continued making content, joining forces with her close friend Val, someone who had always defended her. She rebranded her channel to Heather and Val, and together they continued uploading videos over the next few years until their final upload on December 11th, 2018. Apparently, the hate they were receiving on a daily basis became too much, even for Val. Heather had hit her breaking point. She stopped uploading on YouTube, stopped streaming on Twitch, and disabled private messages. She deleted her Twitter and her Discord too, ultimately disappearing from the community. Dead friends. What happens if you don't hear from an in-game friend after a few years? When you check back on your list, what do you see? They're nothing but a golem, a puppet. The game shows they're level 0 and their stats are all glitched. This is them dying. Think about it. Where's the first location you encounter these puppets in the main quest line? Not the Golem Tower, because that's a skippable side quest. The answer's Treant Avenue, where haunted minions roam the streets. Could these be the souls of your dead friends? I mean, the rest of Treant Avenue's filled with actual monsters and sea creatures which fit the theme. These haunted puppets just feel so out of place. The Monstrology tome even describes the haunted minion as a roving spirit caught between its physical body and spiritual self, unable to assume its true form. True form? Like the wizard it once was? Could these really be your dead friends, forced to march endlessly in some sort of twisted limbo, yearning for the days of their past? Wait, there's actually one more extremely secret entry at the very bottom of this iceberg, and that is subscribe to Gladrocker. In all seriousness, just like my part 1 video, this part 2 video was a passion project of mine, and it took several months of effort to make, so it would mean a lot if you showed your support by subscribing. It helps my channel grow so much, and all your support means the world to me. YouTube actually shows me that 97% of you who watch my videos aren't yet subscribed, so let's change that. It's free to do, and you can always unsubscribe later on if you feel like it. Plus, I'd like to make a Wizard101 Iceberg Explained Part 3 video in the future, so you'll want to stay tuned for that as well. But yeah, that's about it. We reached the bottom of the iceberg. Again. I really hope you enjoyed diving down the Wizard101 rabbit hole with me a second time, and hopefully it was just as exciting as the first. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this experience. I can't wait to read them all. Oh, and if you have a topic I still haven't covered in both parts 1 and 2, please let me know in the comments. Because if there's enough new topics, you bet I'll make a part 3 video. As always, I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.